Hello, and welcome to Everything Fear. This podcast is dedicated to all things horror, so please sit down, get comfortable, and be scared. Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Everything Fear. This week, we have a short story by author G.R. Jordan, an interview with producer and writer Gary Smart, music from Razor Thane, as well as the usual spooky news, true horror stories, movie news, and more. And now it's time for Spooky News, our weekly look at all the weird and wonderful things happening around the world. First up, we have a story about the British Museum in London. Guards at the museum have reported hearing ghostly footsteps and crying amongst the exhibits. Some have seen doors opening and closing, fire alarms sounding in the middle of the night, and chilling music floating through the air of the museum. Also spotted have been glowing white orbs on the staircase, and even tourists have reported seeing a female dwarf in the reflection of a glass case holding a 16th century mechanical galleon. These tales have been collected by artist Noah Angel, who has spent years talking to over 50 employees about their experiences. Next up, we have the story that Queen Elizabeth of England is sharing Windsor Castle with up to 25 ghosts during lockdown. The Queen, along with her sister, Margaret, even claims to have seen one herself, the ghost of Elizabeth I, her namesake. The figure of Elizabeth I is quite often seen in the library, and her footsteps can be heard on the bare floorboards before her striking presence appears. Also, another monarch that's said to haunt the castle is George III, the Mad King. And also Henry III, who apparently hobbles around the deanery cloisters. It's said that you can sometimes hear the sound of his ulcerated leg thudding on the floor as he walks. And finally, this story is really spooky. If you get a chance, go on YouTube and look at the video. It's a video of a funeral, and the coffin has a glass panel in it. And as the funeral is taking place, the coffin's been lowered into the ground. You can clearly see a hand wave from inside that glass panel. People are saying it's a ghost, or is it just that he was buried alive? Who knows? Stay spooky. And now it's time for this week's interview with producer, writer, director, Gary Smart. And now we are joined by writer, producer and director Gary Smart. Good evening, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I'm doing well in the circumstances.
Well, yeah, we're all in the same boat at the moment.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You are part of Dead Mouse Production.
Yes, I'm one of the co-founders of Dead Mouse Productions, along with Christopher Griffiths and Adam Evans.
How did you get into filmmaking?
Oh, how long have we got? Obviously, always been a fan of film, like most people. Big fan of horror genre, bit of aficionado on zombie films, things like that. I kind of was invited about 5 years. I'd already written a book, about 10 years ago on Return of the Living Dead, my favourite horror film, favourite zombie film. I kind of fell into that. I met a guy at a convention called Christian Sellers, who was a kind of freelance writer for a UK horror magazine called Gore Zone at the time, which is no longer about, but it was obviously, it was quite a popular one back in 10 years ago. Anyway, I met him and he was a big fan of Return of the Living Dead, and we kind of discussed about writing a book, and we just kind of did it. And these things happen, it snowballs. We got a publisher, it was released, did quite well. I was then asked to write the More Brains documentary on the Return of the Living Dead by people that made Never Sleep Again and Crystal Lake Memories, Tommy Hudson, Mikey Perez. It was pretty easy for us, to be honest, because we'd already written the book. So we had the narrative there already. But what it did teach me was how to transcribe interviews, obviously these talking heads, and how to use and transcribe them into a script edit, obviously for a kind of narrative for a documentary.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to get involved in that. I kind of stored that. I was invited then to a screening of Night of the Living Dead in Birmingham. There's a place called Custard Factory, and they were doing like some retro kind of screenings at Halloween. He invited me as a guest to talk about zombie films. I turned up and there was 4 people in the audience. I was told it was sold out, so I was kind of fibbed to a little bit. But when I got there, I was kind of talking to the organisers and basically said, you could really make something of it. You can make it, if you get a guest here as well as a screening, you could, get. There's a big audience in Birmingham, particularly on horror. You can see that obviously for the horror conventions, memorabilia. When there's horror guests there, it was always busy. Gore Zone did stuff in Birmingham. It was always busy. And obviously people, as it being Birmingham as well, people will travel to Brum to obviously go to these things.
That's right. Yeah.
So I suggested, obviously, why don't we just do, I was close friends with Don Cafer, the actor from Return of the Living Dead. I suggested, why don't we just do kind of a screening of that? We can get him over. If we charge £20 a ticket, there's 100 seats, that's $2,000. If we then, flights would cost $1,000. Licensing the film's not too expensive, but at least you can start off getting a big name like Don for that film to come over. And they agreed, and we got Don over. And that kind of got me in with a group of people who were doing kind of films and whatnot. Yeah. And then one of our screens then was on Hellraiser. We had Simon Bamford, Ken Cranham, Jeff Portus, and Nicholas Vince come to a screen of Hellraiser 1 and Hellraiser 2. And then we got talking and said, what, don't we make a documentary on this? Because nobody ever done it before. It was a British film.
That's
I kind of had homework, as I said, from doing More Brains. And I got Christopher Griffiths involved and Adam Evans, and we kind of evolved from there, really. It kind of just snowballed. And that's gone on to, obviously, he also called Brewster, RoboDark, Pennywise, Police Academy, and obviously our own series, Dark did his as well. Yeah. So it's just kind of been a big snowball over the last 10 years, probably.
It's really impressive.
That was a short version. Ish.
So how do you go about choosing which films you're going to make documentaries about?
Well, the first one was Hellraiser. I think because I was always a big fan of Hellraiser. I actually was a bigger fan of Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. I just think I love that film. I love Kenneth Cranham, actor. Obviously, I've had the pleasure of working with Kenneth since, obviously, doing the screen. He's been in our Ditty films, Ditty series, sorry. Yeah. So I kind of loved the Hellraiser. And I did think, most of the people here, most of the actors were British. The production crew was British. So let's just try. And we interviewed a few people. That snowballed into about 30, 40 people. We had to go to the State Centre to interview some people there. Sorry, I've got 2 dogs.
That's all right.
Just ignore them. But I think they're suffering from lockdown at the moment.
Oh dear, yeah, ours is too.
Ridiculous. And then, so Hellraiser was our first one because I loved that film. The second one was You Also Called Brewster, the story of Fright Night. I love Fright Night as well. So I muscled in on that and wanted do that. And then the next one was Stephen King's It. The reason we got involved in that, we met a guy called John Campopiano who had done Pet Sematary documentary.
Yeah.
We kind of were talking a long time about doing Pennywise, Stephen King's It. The biggest thing for us was trying to get Tim Curry. We kind of thought if we can't get Tim, we won't probably do it because he's so iconic for that role.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do without him, wouldn't it?
It would be, and we've done stuff before without people. I mean, Peter Weller being the big one for RoboCop. But that is a different story. But we kind of thought as well, because, you know, Tim had a stroke as well, so Tim wasn't well.
No.
But then he said yes, so we thought, shit, we got to do it now. And then that kind of, once we got Tim involved, everybody else came on board then. That kind of really did snowball. We were lucky because we already met the director, Tommy Lee Wallace. He directed Fright Night Part 2.
Yes.
So we met him. So that was kind of a mixed kind of choice. And then RoboCop was Chris's idea. You know, he's a massive aficionado of RoboCop, huge fan. We'd kind of muted about it for a while. We were told you can't do it; it's too big. A book's already done on it, which was a comprehensive book, which really wasn't. We then met Ed Neumeyer. We went for a meal with him. Another different story in LA when we were shooting Fright Night. Chris plucked up the courage to contact him and say, you know, we're in town. Do you fancy going for a meal? He said yes, strangely. and he kind of suggested to us actually about doing RoboCop. You know, he said maybe, you know, move away from the horror and do a different type of horror, which obviously I do think RoboCop's a horror film.
Yeah.
I do class a film because it's horrific what happens to Murphy in the film,
and it's kind of a reworking of Frankenstein in many ways.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's also the horror of what people will do to, you know, corporate kind of people will do to make a few quid as well.
Yeah,
and you know that's more scary sometimes than somebody in a glove.
Definitely.
So, you know, and so Ed suggested that, and obviously we kind of decided to do that. And then subsequently, Police Academy has been a lifelong love of mine. So even just about half hour ago, I was literally editing Police Academy 6, the documentary on the 7 films and the TV series, cartoon series. I'm on number 6 at the moment, so I'm ploughing through that thanks to lockdown. And then obviously we've done Icon Story, Robert Englund. I love Robert Englund.
He's a big hero of mine.
So he kind of a lot of discussion, a lot of conversation. But the good thing is, myself, Chris, and Adam kind of like the same film, so that really helps us. Really, that we've got that kind of love for the genre. The one which was a little bit different for us was obviously RoboCop at first, and then obviously Police Academy was completely different because it's a comedy.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just wanted to do that because I love that film. And, you know, I don't think it gets the love and recognition it deserves. I think people see it as a kind of campy, kind of embarrassing kind of like love of a film.
Yeah.
But actually, it's part of a lot of people's childhood. Really.
That's right, definitely. I remember them very well.
Yeah, and it's like the Carry On films, you know, they're there to be smutty and raunchy and a bit of a laugh on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Going back to your question, it is down to conversation about, and also down to kind of our love, you know, what we actually love doing. There's films I'd love to do documentaries on, but I just know there wouldn't be interest in those films because they're not big enough. And, you know, when we obviously do these, we do crowdfunding.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a film which has a solid audience, to be honest, because to raise that money.
That's right.
And that's another kind of like minefield as well. I mean, some people have been very successful. People did the 80s horror doc, extremely successful. We're doing a sci-fi doc at the moment. But when you do a particular documentary on one film,
it's got to be, yeah, you
target one audience. So it's very difficult. So Police Academy was a difficult one because as much as people like Police Academy, would they fork out 20 quid for a documentary? Probably. But would they fork out 200 quid for be a producer, associate producer on there? $2,000 to be an executive producer, not necessarily, but they will do for RoboCop and Pennywise because it's a different kind of film.
That's right.
So it's difficult choosing the right film, but also then obviously pitching it, you know, to yourself as well, and obviously to the audience to get interest in it. There's always interest, but it's up to how much people will commit to something well in advance. You know, we know with RoboCop, it's 4 years in the making. It's a mammoth task.
Yeah.
So committed 4 years ago. Now, if we would have told them 4 years ago it's going to take 4 years to do it, would they have committed? You know, gone, yes, here's 20 quid. Probably not.
No.
But we just didn't know. You know, it's going to take that long. And you know, and I think when it comes out, what people can see from the previews, hopefully you can see that 20 quid was well spent.
Well, I was going to say that because your documentaries are famously very, very in depth, and I just wondered how much planning and organising goes into them.
The difficult one probably for me is Leviathan, because I love Hellraiser 1 and 2, and I love the third film as well. We kind of touched that in the bonus features. But the problem you get is when you interview so many people, you end up with a lot of footage. We interviewed 45 people on Leviathan, and you have a set structure in your head. And most documentaries are a natural kind of flow. You get pre-production, who's involved, how it came about, how the story came about, how you got the director involved, how you got the casting, each cast member, production starts, key special effects, key scenes, post-production, music, maybe editing, and then obviously release and legacy.
Yeah.
So you get a nice structure anyway, but obviously then you get specific questions for specific actors. Now in Leviathan, we were a bit kind of naive a little bit, because what we did is we asked everybody the same bloody question. So we went in with like a 20-page document, and we asked everybody the same stuff, which is great because people have an opinion. But what you find is, over time, is that somebody's story is actually somebody else's story they've heard at a convention or on an interview or on a podcast.
Yeah.
It's not their story. So what we were doing, asking people, tell us about working with so-and-so, and they were telling us, you actually weren't in the scene with that person, but they met that person subsequently at premieres and whatnot and conventions, so they have something to say. So what we ended up with on Leviathan was about 90 hours of footage, which then had to transcribe, which is a pain in the arse transcribing is. Now you can buy transcribing software.
Yeah.
But even like 5-6 years ago, you couldn't. So you had to literally do it by listening, typing, and what you've got to do is type the whole interview. You've got to break the interview up into time codes.
Yeah.
So naturally, where you think it's going to be. So if I'm talking and saying I love Hellraiser because it was great, blah 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 blah, and go on for ages, you really want that bit when I say Hellraiser was great, and that is going to be at 0.16 seconds to 9.6. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that you've got to get that flow. Yeah, you have. So what we did then, when we kind of learned from our mistakes on Leviathan, because what we did on Brewster was we made the questions very tailored to the specific people. We weren't interested if somebody, let's argument's sake, was a special effects person who did one particular scene. They did save just a werewolf only.
Yeah.
They're not going to have any interaction with Chris Sarandon.
No.
Because they're not in the scene with him. Now, they may have had some stuff on set, but that's not relevant to the documentary then, because when you're breaking it down, where does it fit in the doc? Where does it fit and where's that story fit? And you end up then shoehorning stories in for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So we tailored the questions around people, and we're very specific. We've done that particularly well, I think, with Police Academy. We kind of, it was like, this is what we know you did, tell us about it, and then that's it. So I'd say when we started Leviathan, the interviews were lasting 2 hours plus per interview. When we just done, say, Icon, Robert England's documentary, a little bit different narrative, but interviews were lasting anything between 20 minutes and an hour tops. I mean, Roberts was 5 hours his interview.
Well,
obviously it's about him.
Yeah.
But we don't need that much from people. We need the gold, really, the really interesting stories. Now, and we've learned as well that some people have brilliant stories as well. People who you don't expect to have those stories will have them. You might expect Doug Bradley to have amazing stories on the production of Hellraiser, but actually, if you break it down, Doug was on set maybe 6 days, 9 days. He did his scenes and he went home. Whereas somebody like the clapper loader, Clive Mackey, who's there with the clapboard, was there every single day of a 3-month shoot.
That's right. So he saw everything.
Yeah, so his stories, that it's not being disrespectful to Doug, obviously, sometimes are more interesting because they're more about the fun stuff that happened on set and the quirky stories and interesting stories. Doug's will be very specific about his makeup, the character development, which is great, but then you lose it. You don't need him then somewhere else. You don't need somebody else talking about Doug. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you've Doug doing it already. And I think with Leviathan was the original cut. No, Leviathan's 9 hours, the original cut, which some people love, and it's hard to get now. You can't, to buy it on DVD. Yeah. People love it. I'm not keen on it. I've always said that publicly. I think I much prefer the Arrow cut that myself and Chris edited. We didn't edit the first one. We hired someone, well, the director who was involved at the time got involved in the edit. And wasn't a huge fan on Hellraiser. But anyway, but when, and we were contractually obliged to do certain things which, you have to in the business, unfortunately. So when we did the Arrow cut, we put our, the part one's only an hour and a half, part two just over an hour and 40.
Yeah.
And it's really tight.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's about what the core subject is. And, you look at Leviathan, again, I know people love it, but the original cut, you've got people talking for half an hour about how great Clive Barker is now. Yeah, he's great. He's a legend, but how many times do you need to hear legend?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen both cuts. I've got the full-length version on DVD, but I've watched the cuts on Shudder.
Yeah, Shudder, yeah.
And, I enjoyed the full cut. There's a lot of information in there, obviously. But, if you're just sitting down to watch something, then
watch that, yeah. I mean, people have said that they've watched it in, naturally you would watch it in intervals.
Yeah.
And people like it because it is. I think Leviathan, to be honest, apart from some repetitiveness, I can't even say it, repetitiveness in it, I think it is a real kind of insight into filmmaking. I think Leviathan. Forget about Hellraiser, about how a film is made, how a production is made, the key people involved. But if you want to watch a documentary on Hellraiser, you watch a Shudder version, and I'm really proud of Shudder version. And I think one day we'll probably release it on Blu-ray Shudder one, when we've got time to maybe do a new cut of it, or a tweak cut of it, and then because it's not been released on Blu-ray apart from, I think it was on Blu-ray in Spain. I think Leviathan came out the cut version.
Yeah.
They did a box set where they actually put it as a separate disc, which was great. But in the UK, it's not been released as a separate disc on Blu-ray nor in the States. I think one day we'll do that. And, we never know. We might get some fresh interviews for it as well. But at the moment, we've so kind of tied down with RoboCop and Pennywise and Police Academy. We haven't really got the time to invest in it.
The books that you produce to go along with your documentaries are works of art. I mean, they're beautiful and just a fantastic resource, I think, for anyone interested in filmmaking or the horror genre or anything like that. I mean, what made you decide to do the books and to do them in such a appealing way? Well,
obviously I'd already done the book on Complete History of Return of the Living Dead, which was done by Plexus Publishing in the UK. Now, their design brief was very simple, and it's a very kind of it was published and available in shops and whatnot. But it's a great book, it's on all 5 films. But if you look at it visually, it's a very standard book, picture, caption, text, white page. And we never wanted that, but obviously that's what they wanted from their design team. So when we set our own company up, and we're doing documentaries, the first book I decided to do, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do basically what happened after I did the book with Plexus, we had more interviews given to us, and then we also had about 109 pictures, which we hadn't had at the time. We were searching for them, and somebody found a box of photographs in their loft in the States. One of the actors with loads of behind the scenes photographs in there. And I thought, they gave them to me. I thought, I can't waste these. I want to do something with them. So I thought, let's just try our luck with a book. And we, get a hardback book printed, and on the first film only. And the inspiration really for the design was the Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse book.
Oh, right.
I'd bought that many years ago, and you can get it in the works once it's like £2. But it's it's a very retro kind of book. It's aged pages. It looks like Grindhouse, and I really like the design of that. So I thought that would really suit Cult Screens, but also really suit Return of the Living Dead. Polaroid pictures, sellotape, aged pages, blood splatter. So I kind of did, we had a narrative already from Return of the Living Dead book, the original book. When you interviewed Dan O'Bannon, obviously he passed away at the time we did the first book. We managed to get archive interviews with him.
Yeah.
So and with some other actors as well. And Tommy Hudson was brilliant, the guy who produced Small Brains. He allowed me to use some interviews from that documentary in the book as well. So people who didn't have a voice in the book, in the original book, could then have a voice then, obviously, in the new book. So we basically I designed that myself, obviously, and obviously I co-wrote it with Christian, and it came out really nice. I was really happy with it. You know, it looked nice. I think it went down well with fans. They made a big signing in the States. Me and Chris and Adam was invited to it. We were already there, thankfully. And we went to a signing at Dark Delicacies for the book. And then I was approached by Paul Davis. Now, Paul, funny story about Paul. I like Paul a lot, but Paul Davis was the guy who directed the Beware the Moon documentary on American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
And I kind of I had a run-in with Paul. I don't think he remembers, where somebody had put on a forum, I think on Facebook it might have been, that Leviathan was too long and boring. And he commented about it, saying he could do a better job. and I responded and said, well, like to you try. And then he never replied. And then I got this random email about a year after, maybe longer than that, from Paul. We've been friends on Facebook for a while, and I thought, oh, here we go again. And then it was him basically, I really want to make Beware the Moon documentary that he did for the American Werewolf in London re-release into a book. I've got all his photographs, I've got new interviews. Would something like doing it? And I made him an offer, which obviously was a reasonable offer for a limited run of books. He said yes. We worked really well together. He liked the design. The first book we did together was, we worked well together, but it was lots of to and fro, lots of, he didn't want this, didn't want that. I didn't like what he was doing on some stuff. Yeah. But we did work really well together, to be honest, and kind of it was a bit of a dream project. We got it. Conception, when he first emailed me, or the first phone call we had from the release, the book was about 10 weeks, 15 weeks.
Oh, right.
So it was quite a quick project. Yeah. And it came out really well. And it sold out instantly. I mean, it was amazing how fast that sold out, that book. And then we obviously did a reprint of it on softback. It sold out. And then he approached me then, not long after, to do Lost Boys. Yeah. Which was again from scratch. He wasn't doing it based on something he'd already done before. So while he was writing that and getting all the pictures, and he got a shed load of pictures on that. I mean,
yeah, hundreds. I know the book's full, isn't it?
Yeah. He was really he hit gold on that, and that's the problem with documentaries. You've got to hit gold on the behind the scenes. Yeah, it's very difficult. One, usage is an issue for fair usage, but then on footage. But you've got to get the behind the scenes footage, and you've got to get the behind the scenes pictures. They sell the doc because you don't want talking heads, and the Leviathan was a lot of talking heads. Yeah. So you've got to mask that as well. And one thing, going backwards a little bit, one thing we've learned, obviously, is when people talk naturally, and I've been doing it now, is that people do a lot of ums and ahs.
That's right, yeah.
And in a documentary, you don't really want that. So you've got to mask it. So if I'm saying, I really like you, you're great, let's go out, then in a documentary, it's going to look really crap. If I go, I really like you, you're great, let's go out, it's been cut the ums out.
Yeah. It's going to jitter, isn't it?
So you need images to hide that. So, and it does work, you can hide a lot of stuff, and learn that at Police Academy. But so he had all that stuff anyway, and loads of images, which was brilliant. And I was thinking, we've really hit gold here. And then in the interim, I decided to do a book on Brewster. I asked my colleague Neil Morris, who had been working with quite a lot on the DTs, to write it based on the transcribers, which he did. He did a brilliant job. Again, we had loads of images. And I think what we wanted to say to people as well, when you watch the documentary, you might see an image, say on Your So-Called Brewster, of Peter Vincent, Roddy McDowell, behind the scenes, and it will flash upon the screen for maybe 10 seconds tops, yeah?
Yeah.
You lose it then, you do. Because there's an animation, there's a transition. But what about that? It's actually in front of you in the flesh.
Yeah.
It's always there. So you can really look at that picture, you can really absorb it. So, we wanted to do that as well as a companion piece. People actually could really, get into the imagery, which we had. And put some artwork in there as well, some comic art, which we had commissioned for the books. And then I did Brewster, and I did Leviathan, and they all sold out. We've got no books left now. The only book we've got left. And we just sold out in the comic as well, which we've just done. So, and it was, these books did great for us because they funded the documentaries, and they funded, obviously, the production, obviously, did as well. I can go into detail later on, but obviously our company is a non-profit. Yeah. We don't make money off these, in the sense that we don't make a living off it. We all work in our full-time jobs. When we make these things, we make them out of the love and passion of the project. Yeah. And put the money into the next project then. So say Leviathan, That was made for about £16,000, which is ridiculously low for a documentary. But when the money we made off that, we raised £18,000, I think, for Brewster, but we put 25 grand from Leviathan into Brewster.
Oh, right.
We'd say that Robodoc we raised £33,000, but we put an additional, I think, £60,000 into it.
Yeah.
So that's obviously out of profits from Brewster. So these, when people sometimes, a bit unhappy because these things take a bit of time, we've raised money, but we've put our own money into it as well, our own productions. We haven't been fortunate, like, say maybe like the 80s horror doc who raised 200 grand. A brilliant marketing campaign, lots of algorithms, lots of targeting, which is great. A wider spectrum of obviously an audience than we can have for one particular film.
That's
but we
right.
have 200 grand. We've got 16 grand or 30 grand. So that obviously has its restrictions as well. So, the books have been great to help prop up like things, where we've gone, God, we need another interview for RoboCop. But how much it's going to cost? Well, it's freelance in the States going to cost us $500 plus a studio, another $400, plus it costs us $1,000 to do one interview.
Yeah.
And we need the interview desperately. So we've had obviously, the books have helped with that because there's been money available, which we haven't put in our own pocket and bought our conservatory with or bought a car with.
Yeah.
Because we aren't living off it, which kind of worked out for us. But in the downside of that is because we're not living off it, we only can commit a certain limited amount of time on the project because we've got to earn across and obviously pay our mortgages. So it's catch-22 for us at the moment, and hopefully obviously that will evolve over the years. But it's been 6 years, so yeah.
Well, I mean, the books are, as I say, they're just beautiful and amazing pieces of art in their own right, I think. Yeah,
I'm really proud of the books. I really am. I think they're a nice collection. We had some issues with Lost Boys. I think just because of the sheer weight of it, it was a bigger book. We normally tell ourselves 200 pages. So hardback 200 pages was quite nice. It was a bigger book, so when it was being shipped around the States, thankfully we didn't have many problems in the UK. But when it got shipped to the States, they were battering the hell out of it. United States Parcel Force and throwing it on planes and whatnot. So we had a lot of issues. So we've kind of been reluctant to do another hardback book because the issue that we have is twofold. One is the heavier it is, the harder it is to post.
Yeah.
And then resulting in the cost. And sometimes, I mean, we charge $24.99 for a book, a hardback book, but it's costing $16.99, 17 quid to post it.
Yeah.
Because of the weight. And sometimes I think even on, let's just say on Lost Boys, we charge £16 postage, but it was costing us £18 because we couldn't justify putting it any higher than and then when we had issues in the post, people were moaning at us, and we're thinking, God, it's cost us. You took 1,000 books.
Yeah, it's
700 of them gone to America, and there's an extra few quid. It adds up, It does add, and that's not include. And actually, that doesn't even include the cost of the packaging and the time it costs to package them and the labeling. So it's an expensive game to ship, unfortunately, to the States. And unless till we get a distributor over there or a shop over there or someone do it for us, it's difficult because it's just expensive, And
of course.
The softback books still a dear to know, but they get there safer. The softbacks do because obviously we're not really these big bulky things. You want to start packing a Lost Boys book in a box with bubble wrap and 10 rolls of masking tape. It's going to cost you 25 quid. You want to insure it and track it. It's going to cost you 30 quid then just to send the book out. And that's not fair on people. And we've always tried to say that, we don't want to con people out of anything. And when we get criticised sometimes for obviously delays or issues obviously with postages, I'm getting problems at the moment because of bloody COVID with postage. And people do not understand. We gave these books to Royal Mail 3 weeks ago. Not our fault that that the warehouses are full. It's not our fault that unfortunately customs are a little bit more kind of cautious now. I mean, I heard today on the news or somewhere I heard it that the advice is, if you get a parcel through the door, do not open it for 3 days because the virus will live on cardboard. It's like, what the? So, and people are moaning that, there's been a little bit of a delay in their book.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's crazy.
I digress. But there's lots, when you run an independent company, you do this. We do it for love of the genre. We love these films.
Yeah.
But what you get a lot of stress, unfortunately. And sometimes it does outweigh the positivity because you are dealing with a lot of customers. You're dealing with a lot of issues. I know that the 80s Horror Doc had a similar problem, a massive problem they had. They obviously released their doc and they had it printed in China and they were conned by the Chinese production company. But and it came out as a kind of Blu-ray, what they call disc, which was a recording disc. Kind of like is it BD, whatever it's called?
Yeah, I know what you
mean. You could go and get from Curry's.
Yeah,
and it wasn't their fault. I know I speak quite a lot to Robin, who basically is a producer and all them, and he was devastated because it wasn't their fault. Yet the customers blame them, and you trust the company to do it for you. You pay them a lot of money. I mean, on Brewster, the book on Brewster was delayed because we decided not to go to China and basically get it printed in England.
Yeah.
Now, subsequently, we had all our books printed in England by a company called Nixon, who were brilliant. But we found a company called UK Print, and I don't mind saying it on here, a print, which we paid £7,000 to print Brewster, and he ran off with all the money.
Oh, right.
He ran off all the money and liquidated his company. And unfortunately for us, we hadn't done our homework properly because we wanted to. He was great, we got hold of him and we did. He gave us proofs, PDF proofs. Never had that with China, and back and forth, lots of emails. And then when it came to releasing the book, never came out. We were stuck on. I remember waiting for it. A lorry was coming on this Thursday afternoon. He was definitely going to be here. He's phoned me. He's not far from you. Thursday evening, but hasn't come. Oh, we got stuck. It's going to be tomorrow. It was never ever shipped. It was just all lies. And we found out subsequently that this guy had 3 different names.
Oh my God!
Names, person names, and 3 different companies. He was director of 3 different companies. He'd done the same to everybody else. So you live and learn, And again, we got criticised by people because the book was delayed by 2 months when I had to get a loan, a business loan, to basically pay for those books to be reprinted.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we've all been there. We've all waited for something, and I ordered Rise of Skywalker on Steelbook.
Yeah.
It was shipped on the 16th of April. It was shipped. Hasn't arrived still. And that was from Zavi.
Yeah.
It's somewhere. They're saying it's out there somewhere. But again, there's pros and cons of it, and I think I want to get out there that it is difficult and it's stressful, but also the rewards are when you get nice reviews off people and they love it. And I sit there and watch Brewster still. I love Brewster the doc. I think it's a great doc. I'm really happy with Brewster. I think and we were lucky that we got Eastwood Allen on board, who edited that for us.
Yeah.
And I think it's turned out nice. It's a nice tribute, I think, to Roddy. We wanted to be true to Roddy McDowall as well.
Simon Bamford, isn't it?
Yeah, Simon Bamford plays Roddy, yeah.
That's brilliant. He just nails it.
He was brilliant. I mean, he just that kind of fell into place, really. I mean, we decided on Leviathan we had Oliver Smith, who plays Skinless Frank. He now does all the narration for Sky movies, and he's been on our Ditty series as well. But we had him do narration, a velvet voice, but we decided we wanted to have a host, obviously, for Fright Night, Doc, because obviously, it was a homage to Peter Vincent being the host of a TV show, and it kind of found a place. I put a kind of a thing out on Facebook, a post saying, does anyone know Roddy McDowall lookalike? And I was contacting lookalike agencies, and we were going, who? Roddy who? How do you not know who Roddy McDowall is? Anyway, and then I remember thinking, do you know what? Who looks like him a little bit? He's Simon Bamford. And I messaged Simon, and he said, funny enough, when I was a kid, when I was younger, people always used to say, I look like him. And I thought, well, that's good for me. I said, do you think you can do it? And he says, yeah. And then I said, I'm going to get hold of Stuart Conran, who is a very close friend now, who did the special effects on Shaun of the Dead, Hellraiser, The Descent. I said, I'm going to get hold of him and ask him, could he, because I had a live cast of Roddy McDowall at home, when you buy off these kind of website. Okay. And it was made for Fright Night Part 2. And I said, I said to Stuart, could you take this live cast and mould from it Roddy's actual nose, cheeks and chin and put on Simon Bamford And he went, I think so. And me being me, within about half an hour, I'd put a post online saying we have our Peter Vincent, Simon Bamford with prosthetic makeup by Stuart Conran. Stuart messaged me and went, I said, I think I can do it. I didn't say I could. I went, well, he's a challenge. And he did. He did a brilliant job. And it was amazing to see him come to life and transform. Yeah. And I think we did it. It was really weird on set as well, because we've had it subsequently with Mr. Wilshire, with Simon and Stuart, where you forget that person's actually the actor. And it was happening on Fright night. We kind of got him in the makeup chair. And when he was done, you'd look and you'd forget it was Simon. You'd look, oh shit, it's Peter. And I think in the flesh, he looked even better. He just looked like Roddy. He looked the spit of him. And it was just really kind of uncanny, really. And,
it's quite eerie.
Yeah. I mean, again, we've had kind of like people love that. People said it was brilliant. Or people said they didn't really, they thought it was too much, maybe, that it was a little bit long, the scenes were, but we had a bit of fun with it. We kind of really went to town on it, and we had a lot of narration. And I think I think it broke the documentary up as well for us. And I think I'm really proud of it. I think I'm really proud of what Simon did and Stuart did, and Neil Morris wrote those segments as well. He watched Fright Night in detail and really picked up obviously the lingo and the kind of the cockiness of Peter, because Peter's a cocky, arrogant person, really. Yeah. And I think he really picked that up. Obviously, Simon did a brilliant job of delivering it as well. So I was really happy that turned out. Yeah,
well, it is a wonderful performance and a wonderful documentary.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I know it's egotistical to say, but I think, when you look at documentaries out there, I think a lot of people who know of it, because people still don't know of it, weirdly enough. Well, people that do know of it, I think people do put it in their kind of top kind of documentaries, really. I'm really happy.
Definitely.
When people mention Never Sleep Again and then mention You're So Cool, Brewster, I'm really happy, because I know people made Never Sleep Again, and they really invested a lot of money, a lot of time in that. So to be compared with them, I think I'm really, really happy with that.
Yeah, I'd probably say they were my two favourites, actually. Never Sleep Again and You're So Cool, Brewster.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, Never Sleep Again is a masterpiece. It really is. I mean, it's 10 years old. It was 10 years old a couple of days ago, I think it was, wasn't it?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
And again, without that, we would never have done Hellraiser, to be honest. Leviathan, I think, because Tommy Hudson and Mikey Perez were doing that back 10 years ago, and nobody was doing it here. Now, people do documentaries all the time now, and I think, you already had Beware the Moon. That was a bonus feature by Paul Davis. The people who, the Anthony and Claire Bueno, who are really close friends, they were doing obviously Ghostbusters doc for a very long time. They were self-funding for a long time, 12 years ago, in fact. But regards to horror, no one was doing it here, and we kind of dipped our toe in, and we always said, and I always said to Chris, one day people will realise that you can do these things independently, and and we won't. At one stage we were the only people really going full length on these things, and now obviously 80s horror doc have popped up, and they're doing a fantastic job. And they were involved with the Last Action doc as well. So it's not competition. We know these people quite well, but it just I think that the kind of the community is getting a little bit smaller now. Yeah. And I think it's going to get more difficult as time goes on with regards to making these things, because one, getting a good subject matter as well, which is interesting. And I think when you get people doing documentaries on a range of films like 80s horror and like the action doc, it's gives a little bit more kind of like flavour for the audience then, and you get your targeting a bigger audience, because you might have a big Freddy fan who doesn't really like Jason, but you might have a big Jason fan who wants to watch documentary because Jason's in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what we try to do. I think with Icon a little bit, because obviously Rob England's got such a varied career, so that's kind of we've learned a little bit from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, because Robert Englund, I think started when was it, the 70s?
Robert, his career started in the early 70s, and he's obviously did V in the early 80s, and his big break was Freddy Krueger in 84. But since then, obviously, 2001 Maniacs, Urban Legend, The Wishmaster. He's, and there's another 200 probably films he's done.
Yeah, The Mangler.
The Mangler, brilliant film as well. So, we wanted to touch upon that. And the brief we had with Robert, that's another story, was that this wasn't about Freddy Krueger, this was about Robert, and Freddy was important, of course, because obviously Freddy's what made him an icon, and obviously he knows that. and he loves that. But it was about what else has Robert done, which fans may not know of or isn't celebrated as much as Freddy.
Yeah.
And without Freddy, these roles wouldn't have happened. So, that's what kind of the angle we took. And we've been really lucky, I think, on Icon that we've introduced some great people. Lance Henriksen, Heather Langenkamp, of course, Peter Atkins, Steve Johnson. And the list goes on and on. Bill Moseley came on board. Eddie Furlong we interviewed as well. Just about kind of iconic kind of roles. So, it's a very different documentary for us. And it's going to be, and COVID unfortunately delayed stuff because we were meant to be doing some outsourced interviews in the Easter break. But that's delayed a little bit. But, it's one of those things. But it's going to be a different kind of doc as well. It's not going to be a traditional beginning, middle, and end because it's about someone's life in a sense who's still alive as well. Yeah. Very much so. So it's an interesting project to work on. So I'm going off tangent completely.
That's all right. We'll be back with Gary Smart later in the show. And now it's time for this week's music section. This week, we have the song River from the band Razor Thane. Razor Thane are a 5-piece metal band from the Midlands in the UK. They were formed in 2018 and have released 3 tracks that are available on all platforms, along with videos for all 3 songs that are available on YouTube. Please check these guys out. They're really good. This is River.
Money and his right to breathe, but starting not to work.
for this week's short story, which is a Lovecraftian nightmare by author G.R. Jordan called The Island. Enjoy. I cannot get away quick enough from this accursed place, a location where I dreamed of living with nature in a simpler lifestyle and at peace with the world. But now I am forced to use the daily ferry service back to the mainland as the flights have all been booked up. Until I set foot on the mainland and then take my flight from the large airport to the other side of the world, I shall not be at rest. They may even come from the water to this slow beast of the sea that I ride. I know that I may never see another day in this life. What causes such fear and panic, you ask? That which lies unseen, and which shall rise up once uncovered, for I saw it move, and I saw the work being carried out. Once I saw this outlying island as a stunning vista for my daily walks with my beloved collie, but now it stands as a monument to a hell from God only knows where. Being a Londoner for the previous 20 years, I thought it was the perfect plan to cash in my hard-earned savings from the past years of toil and take a cottage on those islands that occupy the west side of Scotland. Hopes of a quieter life were at the forefront of my endeavour, and when I arrived on a grey and drizzle-filled morning, even the weather could not hold down my excitement. Anders was simply buzzing as we took a walk along the beach located close to the small building I had purchased, and as we strolled across the sand, he sniffed his way across the rocks and seaweed, looking out to sea. I saw the island standing proud with a number of seagulls circling and seeming to dive down to the saddle surrounded by green grass. It had sides that were sheer, and the pasture above seemed to be thriving, although I had heard there were sheep often taken to the island in summer. As I stood watching the birds attack the ground above the rocks, a local man came along dressed in a red boiler suit, a not uncommon form of clothing, as I soon discovered. He had a limp and seemed to curse the very air. For a moment I saw a look of affection as he glanced at my dog, but he sharply turned away, a tear forming in his eyes. Not wishing to embarrass the man, I simply ignored this stumble and I continued watching the island. "You want nothing to do with this hellhole over there. If you know what's good for you, ignore it. Ignore them. Too heavy a price to pay. Too heavy." She was still young. I motioned to engage the man at this outburst, but he would have none of it, and rudely brushed me aside, dragging his leg behind him. I thought him a poor victim of a cruel world and wanted to offer him some comfort, but another man was approaching. Dressed in a boiler suit of blue, this man stopped by me and offered a hand, shaking it. I introduced myself, and he asked me why I had come to the island. I must have spoke to that man for almost 20 minutes, but to this day do not know his name. He asked me everything of me, but when I asked in return, he smoothly drove the conversation back towards myself. It was strange, but I was new, and I saw it as no more than a local's curiosity. The man in the red boiler suit had apparently lost his sheep in crossing from the island previously, and had not recovered well from it. His leg had been damaged during the escapade, and maybe his pride had brought about his story of things being on the island. A poor soul, I concluded. It was a week later that I walked to the beach again with Anders, and he seemed out of sorts. All week he had sniffed among the rocks, but today he seemed to want to avoid them, intrigued. I wondered if maybe there was some foreign pollution I needed to report. And so, as he stayed firmly on the beach, I clambered onto the rocks in a direct reversal of our normal pattern. There among the rocks, I found what I thought was a crab claw. It had a shell-like quality and was as tough as anything I had observed in the sea, maybe the size of my hand. I thought it must have travelled a long way from those depths where the king crab exists, and I thought it quite a treasure, so I popped it in my trouser pocket and walked on, thinking the day a good one. On a return walk that night, under a laden sky, and with no moon in sight, I saw something move on the island. It was an orange glow, and what can only be described as thin shadows moving. Before my walk, I had consumed several glasses of rather fine malt, and so I doubted my eyes were correct. Carrying on my walk, I checked the island every once in a while, but I went to sleep thinking that it was a damn fine drink I had imbibed. When I saw the same shadows the next night, I decided to linger and believed I saw the dancing of ridiculously long-limbed women, their arms caught in shadow that elongated their manner, but as I stared, I also caught a breath of foul air in the sea breeze, like eggs that had gone off, and an overall stench of decay. Being a civilised person, I thought it best to alert the Coast Guard, and I filed a report with them, but I heard little more on that front. Several nights later, my dog was howling, and so I took him to the beach to walk off some of his excess energy, and again I saw the same display on the island. Surely someone was up to something. Hot-headed as I am, I took a boat from the nearby small harbour and started its motor, letting Anders find his spot. He did not seem keen on the journey, and had taken up residence at the rear of the vessel, lying on the floor. As the vessel neared the island, I heard a splash behind me, along with a whimper, and on spinning around I could not see Anders. There was a ripple in the water, fighting the buoyant waves, but my companion was nowhere to be seen. In vain I looked over the boat's edge, one side and then the other, before I realised that the engine had stopped and I was drifting over to the rocks. As the vessel made a sharp crack onto the solid structure, I stumbled before jumping onto the structure, flinging my hands onto the rough barnacles that shredded my skin. Clinging to the rough surface for my life, I then dragged myself ashore, my shoes sodden and my trousers weighing heavily. As I stood upon the rocks, the beach I had come from seemed so far away, and I could not see Anders anywhere. I hoped he was swimming for home, but I had other issues to think about, and yet the little yelp he had given before he had disappeared kept coming into my ears. There was nothing to do except gain some height on the island and then hopefully attract attention, that night or even the next morning. Being stranded was not a prospect I was looking forward to, but it was at least not a hopeless situation. I would also get to complete my investigations on what was causing the orange glow on the island. Looking around, I saw a gap in the rock face. The island had a base of sheer rock of some 30 feet, and it would be near impossible for someone of my age to climb. You could see the tide lines on this encompassing face, and I decided that I would need to gain height, otherwise I would be standing in the sea in a few hours' time. Stepping as lightly as I could over the rocks toward the cave, I felt blood running over my hands from where the barnacles had cut through, and I stopped to rip off some clothing and produce a makeshift bandage. As I prepped these covers, there came a low wail on the wind. Coming from above me, it was followed by a return call, this time coming from the beach. In the distance, I saw a number of figures walking from the land into the water. They were twisted and bent, but otherwise vaguely human in shape. But I saw one raise an arm, and it had a claw the size of a human head on the end of the appendage. Others had feelers of some kind emerging from their heads, but all were entering the water and swimming towards the island. My mind raced at this strangeness and their impending arrival, but I struggled to draw my gaze from the sea. Breaking from my fear and fascination, I hastened to the cave and dove into the black shadows within. But a morbid curiosity took me back to the entrance, and I watched from my hide as the creatures I had seen on the shore now reached the island. A vulgar parade of abnormality ensued, and I saw such hideous forms in strange robes climb out of the water and then ascend the small cliff face. There were many with claw hands, as I had seen from a distance, but others had spear-like hands, one single pointed end that looked as sharp as any knife. Others had black eyes on the end of stalks on their heads and hard shells for heads, but many had a mixture of human fixtures of ears, noses, and hair that combined with these other monstrosities to make a mockery of God's creation. In fascinated terror, I watched the unholy arrival, scared to utter a breath in case they saw me, but I was also intrigued. It was this part of my makeup that drove me into the cave to find a way up to the top of the island, to see what possible reason there was for this calling. Inside the cave, I struggled to see anything, and I slowly crept forward, my hands searching the dark before me. My mind spun at what I had seen, and I wondered if I might meet one of the creatures as I felt my way along, maybe inadvertently placing my hand on a feeler or on the sharp point of a claw, before being at their mercy in the blackness. But none were found by my hands, and instead I found a rough passage leading upwards. I was unsure of my exact orientation, but as I worked my way along the passage, it was evident that it twisted this way and that. As I turned to my right at one point, my hands ran across something smooth, with a ridge of sharp points at its top. My finger was cut, but I traced the line again, seeing if I could work out what it was. The shape had a shell-like quality. It seemed to run forever, and I groped in the void with my hand, sliding along the shape. It must have been over 20 feet long. In the dark, this was an estimate, but I doubt I was far wrong in my efforts. But what bothered me was that as I traced the shape, it became clear it was a claw of some type, massive in the extreme. Why I felt the need to go on, I cannot say, but we are a curious race and seem at all times desperate to satisfy our hunger for that which we do not know. Maybe that is the flaw that will be our undoing, for I am now convinced there are things better to be ignorant of. Does it do the ant any good to wonder about the destructive nature of the boot from above before the arrival of the killing blow? I think not. Better to enjoy life and be ignorant of the impending doom. Accepting the urge within to investigate further, I climbed upward within the black passage. How far it ran I cannot say, for time seemed to be difficult to gauge, and with my eyes effectively being redundant, I could not speculate on how far I had travelled, but I do know it ended in a scene I never expected nor want to revisit. As I came to the top of the passage and saw an orange tinge to the opening before me, I cautiously peered out. It was the sound of scraping, and this gravelly melody was being perpetrated by the creatures I had seen arrive. Each was taking a claw or a pointed appendage and prodding at the surface, dragging back and removing some form of top surface. As far as I was aware from the long view I had previously on the island, the top was just grass, but as I looked out, it resembled a mine, albeit with the strangest miners I have ever seen. My brain struggled to understand what possible cause could these crazy beings have to dig on such a separate and insignificant island. But I remembered the old man in the red boiler suit and his sheep being lost. The reason was strong enough to kill, and I hunched back down in the passage entrance. The digging continued, and every now and then I would hear a high-pitched squeal or squeak, and thought the beings to be conversing. On one of my forays to the top of the passage to peer out, I saw the reason for the orange glow, a stone set in the ground that emanated a warmth in the night air. At times the creatures would congregate briefly towards it, almost as if they were on a tea break. But these breaks were short, and they would then hobble back and resume their digging. I must have fallen asleep in the passage, for the next time I peered over the top of the passage entrance, there was only a few creatures remaining. They seemed engaged in returning the turf to the top of their dig, but in a balanced fashion, leaving large dugout caves beneath. Realizing that they were covering up their work, I felt a hunger to know what this cornucopia of absurdity was for, and overcame my fear of the creatures to sneak beyond the confines of the passage. Delicately, I crawled on my belly, ignoring the pain from my cut hands. Amidst the orange glow, I was able to make out the surface and climb down to where I had seen one of the creatures digging. Before my eyes appeared a long shell surface that had been exposed, but which was still not fully free of the soil. The part before me was 8 feet wide, but as I dug with my fingers, I found it continued to run further. It had an ebony tinge to it and almost gleamed with the luster of life, nothing like a fossil or an old bone you would find. I heard the creatures moving at the far end, continuing with their work, but I realized I needed to know the degree to which this operation was to progress. Clearly things were in the soil, things that were either ancient or archaeological in nature, and to get a better assessment, I would need to take a wider view of the project. If I could get to the top of the island's highest point, I would probably be able to see all. The highest point was behind me, and at one end of the island, a sheer drop beyond it, as I recalled from the studies of the island from the beach. So delicately, I retreated, working slowly back up in the darkness, clear of the dig, and then up the grassy slope to the vantage point. My heart was in my mouth in case they heard me, but my skills were adequate to the job, and I was able to reach my goal undetected. I stood and looked down onto the worksite, and my heart pounded at the image before me. In the crater dug by the creatures were many bones and shell shapes that all spiraled out from a central core, but that also seemed connected. As my mind reeled, it also started to lock the patterns together, building the parts into a whole. Before me was a creature of enormous size, with 4 eyes at its centre, over 50 appendages, and a mouth with a multitude of teeth. Reeling from the discovery, I stood transfixed until I noticed that one eye had closed, and then it opened again. The other eyes began to blink, and I swore the inner black iris began to peer towards me. There seemed to be an agitation spreading, and the limbs started to vibrate. One long shell that was clear of the soil beat into the ground, and the workers now stopped. As crazy as it sounds, I wanted to look on, a horrific addiction, but the movement of the creatures and my instinctive self-preservation made me turn and run. Yet there was nowhere to go. I was at the upper point of the land, a cliff and sea below, and the creatures now scrabbling towards me. Fear drives you to extremes, and I did not hesitate to jump down to the water below. I heard rumblings in the water as I desperately swam for the shore. A voice that squealed and screeched in unholy tones, but I desperately fought my way on, pushing back my reeling mind to find a function I could follow. Legs kicking and arms swinging. I climbed from the beach and ran up to my accommodation, throwing open the door. Daylight was starting to appear over the horizon, and I grabbed my laptop and mobile phone, a few clothes, and got into my car. I drove over 50 miles away before stopping and connecting my device to the internet, where I booked my ticket to Australia. The connecting flights from this accursed place were all full, and so I booked onto the car ferry, where I now sit. It has left the port, and now as it leaves the harbour limits, I can see the place I so recently fled from. There is no orange glow in the daylight, and all that is visible is a grass-covered saddle. Looking away from it, I stare down into the water, trying to flush it from my mind. But there in the water is a claw, large and imposing beneath the water and moving alongside the ferry. Searching the depths, I see the shell figures and sharp appendages swimming at speed. I race to the other side, and they are there in the deep too, except one is climbing the outside of the hull, and there's others following. Of all the secrets I know, this one will be the death of me. And now it's time for the second part of our interview with writer, producer, and director Gary Smart. Now, you mentioned earlier the comic. You did the Revenge of the Living Dead graphic novel, yes, which is a continuation, unofficial continuation of the Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So, again, long story short, I became really close friends with the actor Don Kaufer. I mean, like really close, like family. He became very much part of my family and me. He's known him for about 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
He played Ernie Kaltenbrunner in the original Return of the Living Dead, the Embalmer, in the mortuary. When the film finished, it was completed. Everybody loved that film who were making it. You know, people loved Return of the Living Dead when they were making it. Had such a good time on it. And a number of the actors, including Don, including Clu Gallagher, and including James Cameron, all wrote sequels of their own for Return of the Living Dead, and pitched them to Dan O'Bannon because they loved it. You know, they had such a great time. And I think for like Jimmy Cameron and for Clu and for Don, they were kind of like the lead people in that. And in '85, a lot of horror films were like teenagers. You know, it was like that kind of real change really from Halloween onwards, where the younger people were kind of the heroes in it. Now, we've got teenagers in Return of the Living Dead, but we've also got older people who actually are the kind of like the people in it who kind of save the day to a degree.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I know Jimmy Cameron screws it all up by opening the tank, but Clu and Don are the heroes, really, and they protect the others. So they loved doing it. And so Don obviously had pitched his story to Dan O'Bannon, who loved it, O'Bannon did. It was direct continuation. Basically, the story is about the army screwed up again and got the coordinates wrong and blew up a town next to Louisville. And obviously the zombies are still running riot, as well as the army who are going in trying to basically evacuate everybody or kill people on sight. And Don wrote the story, which basically was about that continuation, how he had survived, his character Ernie, with a few other people, and they're trying to escape the city.
Yeah.
And he'd written a treatment, about a 13-page, 20-page treatment, just basically run down of the story from beginning, middle, and end. And he was always going to take it to conventions with him and talking about that. And he always wanted to be a graphic novel. He always said he wanted to be a graphic novel on that. So we started working on it about 10 years ago, and I did the artwork myself originally, going back and forth with Don, changing parts of the story and whatnot. And Don was really keen on it. But back then, we didn't have any clue, me particularly, about how we would even go about making this, regards to producing it and distributing it. No idea. We didn't have a company at the time. And we made some copies on a colour copy, as you do. And Don took it to some conventions with him, and I was really proud of it. And then before he died, we talked about redoing it. I started up cult screenings. I had some contacts with publishers or printing.
Yeah.
About doing it again, and he was really keen to do it. And he wanted to be cartoony. My art was a bit more realistic, and he wanted to be really cartoony in the vein of Return of the Dead, really.
Yeah.
I knew an artist called Jason Miller, a brilliant artist in the UK, and pitched it to him. Would he like to be involved? I'd already kind of developed the story. Don had written into a script format with a lad called Craig Hutchins, and obviously Christian Sellers was involved as well. And we kind of had it there, the basis of it, and got Jason involved. And unfortunately, then Don passed away.
Yeah.
He had dementia, and it took him quite bad, really, in the end. And we kind of decided to book about Don's life. And we got loads of interviews for that, and it kind of fell to the wayside, as these things do, because we were waiting on certain people for interviews, which we needed for certain key points of Don's life. And we will revisit, I think, one day. I think we've got enough resources and archive material to do it. But then we said, let's try and get the comic book done. And then about a year ago, I asked Jason, was he really interested in doing it? He said yes. I gave him the rough version, and then a year later, he sent all the 60 pages to me. We did some tweaks and whatnot, and then obviously within about 4 weeks, it was on pre-order and out.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it. I think, for me, it is a tribute to Dom. That's all it is. It was made 350 copies. We are going to do a reprint because the demand's so high for it. It wasn't about making money. We put a low price on it. It was about celebrating Don, really, and getting it's called Don Carver's Return, Revenge of the Living Dead. It was about getting his story out there, getting his legacy out there, and have his name on something as well.
I think it's a fitting tribute.
It is. I think it was great to see, kind of like Bloody Disgusting, talking about Don Carver's graphic novel, and other horror kind of websites. 2 years after his death, people are still talking about him in that sense. And that's, and that's why, it was a labour of love for us to do, and it was for him. Yeah. And again, like anything you do, people will criticise, and I think some people, when it was released, are bloody disgusting, even though we sold out. It's always weird about the industry. People moan, yet they still buy. It's really strange.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it sold out after about 2 days. Actually, it did. But some people moaned. We didn't like the artwork. It was too cartoony. But my argument is that's what Don wanted. At the end of the day, it's what Don, we went for realism, very realistic imagery, and which was very hard to do. And Don didn't want that. Don wanted it to be cartoony, kooky, and campy. Yeah, and that we did in the end. And I think Jason did a brilliant job. I love what he's done for it. I will work with Jason again in a heartbeat. To do another book eventually with him. Myself and Christian wrote our own sequel to Return of the Living Dead, which was set 25 years after, I think it was, and it was about kind of like a cover-up, and it was bringing the original cast back as different characters. But we talked about having that as a comic as well. Yeah. Again, with time, if time allows, the next year or so, maybe get that out as a comic. But I just think it's kind of for us, it was a tribute. It's all it was, and I'm really happy that people are receiving it now finally, and everyone's been really happy with it. Very complimentary all over Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and it's just nice to see his face. Actually, people are posting pictures of the cover, and Don's on there, in all his glory, and it's kind of see him being hashtagged. I'm really happy with it.
Oh, brilliant. You also mentioned Dark Ditties, which is a series of short films, basically, an anthology series.
It's a weird concept, yeah. I mean, the offer was originally a short film, and then Wilshire's a short film, but we kind of evolved it into a TV series or a televised, or whatever you want to call it, serial, basically.
Yeah.
It's an anthology series, which I'll go into more about how it came about in a minute. But it's an anthology series which are standalone episodes but have a narrative link. So even though you can watch them separately, each episode does have a link to it, has a narrative kind of underflow of circumstances, Easter eggs, and certain character what does appear in like the episodes and connects them. It also uses the same actors now, like American Horror Story did for series by series, using Peters and that whatnot, series by series. We do episode by episode.
Yeah.
So you'll have Bruce Jones, who was famous for Les Battersby in Coronation Street. We'll have him playing a dodgy car salesman in the first episode, a paedophile ghost in the second episode, a Dowboy kind of star, kind of poacher in the third episode, a camp clairvoyant in the fourth episode, and recently just played a truck driver in a zombie apocalypse in the fifth episode. But even though he's playing different characters, those characters still do have some connection, because, like, for argument's sake, in episode 4, the clairvoyant speaks to Bruce's character in episode 1, who died.
Yeah.
And, you know, in his clairvoyant skills, as you would. And Bruce's character in episode 2 appears in a dream sequence at the start of that episode. So it kind of, we've kind of tried to build this world. It's called the Ditty's World, we call it, you know, and we call ourselves the Ditonians, myself, Adam, and Neil. And it's basically, we created like our own little Marvel universe of kind of horror stories in this one little world, really. And it's been really, really fun experience. Chris Griffiths was directed the first episode of The Offer. We were fortunate enough to get the cast like Simon Bamford, Nicholas Vince, Oliver Smith, Barbie Wilde, all from Hellraiser, and of course Kenneth Cranham from Hellraiser, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, Dr. Chenard himself. Yeah. Of course, we got Bruce Jones involved as well. And then we kind of, that was meant to be a little short film, a bit of a laugh. You know, we wanted to do something ourselves narratively, and then it ended up being a big project, bigger than we ever expected, stressful beyond belief. I mean, and it was shot in 3.5 days, that episode.
You shot it at Revesby, didn't you?
Revesby Abbey, which is in Lincolnshire.
Yeah, so near me.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a weird place, Revesby, because we have these paranormal nights there, and really spooky as how it's kind of fallen to pieces, but it's kind of become our home now, and it's kind of become a character in itself. So episode 1 up there as the mansion, the Benoit mansion. Episode 2 was not shot there. We shot that in Warsaw, of all places, block in Warsaw. Episode 3, we went back, but you don't really see the mansion. We used some of the rooms in the mansion to make them look like a cottage.
Oh, right. But
we had such a great time there, and the people who run the place, Malcolm and Ian and James, are so great, and Reese and his other brother are so great. We felt at home there. It's a great atmosphere when you get there. So we went back there and used their grounds for Finders Keepers, and also this kind of like cottage kind of fake thing.
Yeah.
And then before we went back, and you actually had the mansion back as a recurring kind of like character in itself, where the murders happen in the first episode. They're going to do a clairvoyant thing there, this paranormal activity thing.
Yeah.
And then 5, it goes back and you learn more about the house. So the house itself is kind of a character, really, Reesby Abbey. So, you know, but it's a beautiful looking place. It's great for what we want it for. I mean, episode 5 is brilliant because this is the episode 5 set in the apocalypse. You know, if anything, this will be like the last episode of the series. Now, in a sense that each episode isn't in order. So episode 1 is The Offer, episode 2 is Mrs. Wilsh, episode 3 is Finders Keepers. Episode 3 is set before episode 1, and episode 2 is set before episode 3. So it's kind of, but so you don't have to watch them together, but you could. You watch them together, you watch them in real order, you'll spoil it yourself because you'll get all the spoilers. So you know who characters are.
Yeah.
But again, digressing again, Revesby is a brilliant place. You know, we were lucky to find that, and it was by chance as well. We got there the first day to go and basically just suss the place out as a recce. And there was the room we wanted where they showed us around Linda Hollis, who owns the building. And she took us to this big kind of ballroom, and there was no floor. And we're like, well, we're shooting in 4 weeks, and there'll be a floor, I promise. And we're like, we got actors coming in, and we were shitting ourselves, and there's nothing floor. And we got there, 2 days before shooting, and it was a bloody floor, and it was like, it sounds stupid, but if you went in there, you wouldn't have thought that was going to be there. There's no way we could have got that in 4 weeks. It's done since for us. We say to them, we need this room done up as this, as a cottage. But the house itself is full of all over the place of different kind of like props that you could use.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant. We want to make something like a living room. There's enough props in there, armchairs and old tables. Myself and Neil have got quite masterful of it now. When we're shooting episode 5, our DP Terence and Ben. Now, Terence is a bit of a prima donna, but he likes depth in shots, like all cinematographers do. And go, that corner's a bit blank. Me and Neil know instantly what to put in that corner. And he doesn't have to ask. We all go and find stuff, a bookcase here, and move stuff around and whatnot. And I think there's so much there you can play with. It's like a lad cave, really. And we love going there. And we've always said on episode 6, which we're writing at the moment, it will play a part in it as well. That house will. Oh, well. But again, that series has developed massively. We did it, as I said, it's kind of this little one-off thing. It ended up being episode 2. And then we got episode 3 done. We brought Mark Wingett in from the bill, Jim Carver, Quadrophenia. We brought him in episode 3. Then we brought Ian Gowder from Game of Thrones in episode 4. And he's back in episode 5. And we brought Ian Beattie from Game of Thrones in episode 5. And also Michael Higgs, who was in EastEnders as Andy Hunter, and also as Eddie Santini, the Bill. Yeah. We brought him episode 5. And he's brilliant. I mean, again, what we're trying to do is, and it doesn't not sound in any way against actors' types, but people like Les Battersby, or Les Battersby, I'm doing it now, Bruce Jones, for being Les Battersby.
Yeah.
Mark Wingett is remembered by a generation as being Jim Carver in the Bill. And Michael Higgs, for argument's sake, is remembered for being Andy Hunter from EastEnders and maybe Eddie Santini from the Bill. We try to give these people characters which are completely different as well. So, when you talk about Michael Higgs, he's playing a psychiatrist who is he's dead, and he's basically a ghost, and he's sinister. I mean, the guy, he's scared, it's actually on set, Michael. He's scared in a way that he wasn't being like Hannibal Lecter-ish.
Yeah.
He's basically being so calm and condescending in his tone to the other character. It was really creepy, and it was kind of doing an amazing job. He got the character instantly. And recently we won some awards for episode 4, which now we won Best Feature at a festival in London, and we won Best Actor for Mark Wingett. Oh. And Mark came on stage, and Mark said, that Doom Ditties, he's been able to play a gangster, a TV producer, and a crazy priest.
Yeah.
And he had those roles in probably given to him in other stuff, really, in such a different range, in a series. So we really try and write for characters. So Brewster's played all these different kind of people. Ian Gowder in episode 4 played a dodgy kind of paranormal TV host, very much in vein of Peter Vincent. Really, he's based on Vincent, but more nasty. And so 5, he's playing a guy with dementia.
Oh.
And it's such a different in kind of roles. You see him as this kind of real nasty piece of work in episode 4, and then in episode 5, he breaks your heart. Basically, he does, because he's the zombie apocalypse. He has no idea what's going on. He has no idea, and and it's not meant to be funny. It's meant to be kind of really kind of heartstrings, pulling your heartstrings. This guy just is oblivious to what's going on around him, and the world is gone, and his wife is dead, and people are getting eaten by this plague, and he wants to go shopping.
Yeah.
It feels like coronavirus.
I was going to say it's a lot like the world today, really.
But the weird thing is, again, we wrote a scene in Dad, and it was really weird because Neil Cole, one of our actors, who's brilliant, Neil Cole, he's in episode 4 and 5. He tweeted about, he took a screen grab or a photograph of the script for Dad, which we didn't mind him doing, and he put it on Twitter. And one of the things that the characters discussed is toilet roll. And like, who would have thought that really, the world would come to an end and everyone would be fighting in shops for toilet roll as we did at the start of COVID. And we were thinking, God, shit, we kind of like, we
predicted
thought of that. It would just be, it's so hard to get to it, and people would miss it and desperate so much. All the things these characters are missing in our apocalypse, which we wrote, was toilet roll was the main thing he was missing.
And it turned out to be true. That's
true, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you'll have to let me know next time you're in Lincolnshire and we can meet up again.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I said it is. I already would have known. You could play the zombie in. You probably have told me before in episode 5. It's a great place. Lincolnshire's an interesting place in itself.
It is. You've read my book, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't venture out too much, but I can't fault Linda, Malcolm, and James. They're an important part of our production company now. Yeah. Because they understand us, they listen to us, they listen to our moaning, they side with us when we're stressed, and they just, they love being part of it. They love being part of the films. I think in episode 5, Malcolm and Linda play zombies. Only on like a wide shot, like a drone shot of zombies going towards the house, and Malcolm and Linda, they're the house owners. But they're just great. I think great people, and the people around here are nice as well. So we love going there. It's like a little stressful holiday when we go there.
I know all about stressful holidays with having 2 kids.
I bet you do.
So I have these 3 questions that I always ask at the end of every interview.
Yeah.
And they are: what is next for Gary Smart?
Oh God. Oh, well, trying to get out Pennywise, Icon, Police Academy, RoboCop. Now, RoboCop is taking really nice shape at the moment, so that's going really well. Pennywise is in amazing shape. We've just signed a deal with Hank Stars, who's the guy that distributed Ghostbusters documentary, Cleaning Up the Town.
Yeah.
He's now on board as our producer, and obviously he'll be handling all the sales on that, which is brilliant for us because we're all done independently on our documentaries. But having him on board, it means that Pennywise will get a much further reach now in regards to a release, screenings, and distribution, which is brilliant for us as a company. Yeah. Obviously, Rob England was amazing. We've become close friends with him and his wife Nancy. But next, I think we're going to continue with the ditties as well. We're having a break this year from the documentaries because we've got obviously a couple in post-production. Conveniently, obviously, we kind of already said way before COVID that we weren't going to go to the States this year, do a Kickstarter for a project. We just didn't feel it was right to do another one because we got too much on. Yeah. And if we had planned one now, we wouldn't be doing it now because we would not be doing it. Well, that's right. That's kind of fell into our lap. Next, really, I think it's trying to develop the company and develop the brand. I really, really want to develop Dark DTs into an official series. I think it's getting some legs now and get some attention. Yeah. It's ready for to be distributed properly, ready to maybe be remade into a proper series. That's my ambition, really, to do that full time with DTs. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen the offer, and it's a fantastic piece. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And obviously, it was nice to see so many of the Hellraiser cast. Yeah. I mean, it worked in our favour having them in it, to be honest. And obviously, we've used them subsequently as well. We've used Barbie again. We've used Simon. Simon's in everything. Simon's executive producer on the series now. Oh, right. And we've used Ken, obviously, 3 more times since then, Ken Cranham. So we've got a little stock of actors now, a little family, and we call it the family as well. We are a very strong kind of unit. So, yeah, it's worked well for us. Okay, next question. What is your favourite horror movie of all time? I think I've already answered that. Return of the Living Dead. Yeah. It has to be. I love Nightmare on Elm Street, of course I do. I love Freddy Krueger, but I think Return of the Living Dead for me is that film. What I saw very young, I saw it on a bootleg version, which my granddad had copied from the video store. And he used to do it all the time. He used to rent out videos and then copy them. Yeah. And then he used to put little labels on himself. So he'd cut a review out from the newspaper and stick it on the box. And I remember finding that film and it had the first 10 minutes missing. So I hadn't seen the first 10 minutes of Return of the Dead for about 10 years until it came out on VHS. Yeah. On widescreen, and I got it from HMV when I was about 11. So I hadn't seen that. Actually, maybe 12, 13. So that's always been my favourite film. That film obviously has made a big impact on my life because of doing the book, meeting Don, meeting Beverly, all that has obviously snowballed into everything else I've done, really. So that film's important, really, as kind of building what we've created. Without that, we wouldn't have had Cult Screens, really, without Return of the Living Dead, because I did the book. And,
it sort of all came from that, really, didn't it?
Yeah, so it's kind of an important part of my life. Really,
well, that's a very good reason for it to be your favourite.
Yeah.
And the final question is, we also do some true horror stuff on this podcast. Yeah. Have you ever had any true horror incidents in your life? That could be supernatural or just something that was really bloody scary.
I've had loads of supernatural. I'm from a family which believes in paranormal. Again, many stories. I've had experiences where, again, people think that they're bullshit, but they're not. When we were kids, we lived in a house where a gypsy come to the house, tell us the house was evil. And we had one of the rooms in the house when I was a kid, my bedroom. When we moved in, the door was painted black with 666 painted onto the door. And back then, obviously, it wasn't like B&Qs and Wickses. You just painted your doors in your house. And every time we painted the door, it'd come back through 666 wood. The room was always pretty cold. Central heating was on, always cold. One night, my nan was babysitting for us, and she heard my sister and myself screaming upstairs. She ran up the stairs. We were fast asleep. Recently, I moved to a new house and a new estate. I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was someone standing in the hallway, a figure. I let the dogs roam the house at night, and the dog was shitting itself in the corner.
Yeah.
I threw a pillow at this thing, and it bounced off its shoulder and went down the stairs. The pillow did, and the angle it went down, it would have had to bounce off something.
Yeah.
It walked, and I followed it up to my housemate. We got a townhouse, like 3 floors.
Yeah.
And I followed upstairs, and it disappeared. And then, am I dreaming? Whatnot? 2 days later, I go to the States. Mum's house sitting with the dogs. I come home and I said, I need to tell you something, Mum, actually, what happened to me a few days before I went away. And she went, can I stop you there? Was there a figure in the hallway?
Oh, said, that's creepy.
She had seen the same thing. She'd woke up in the night and saw someone standing in the hallway watching her. And I'd not told her that story. So, yeah, I'm very open-minded on stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't scare me. It sounds really weird. I've seen stuff and it doesn't scare me because I kind of get the impression if it's going to hurt you, it's going to do it, isn't it? And
there's not a lot you can do about it.
No, and Reesby as well. That's known as being haunted. I don't know how true it is and whatnot, but I've been there before. And I've gone down into the basement. If you know Reesby Abbey, it's obviously his mansion, but it was a big basement where the old servants' quarters were, where they have all the paranormal nights.
Yeah,
I've gone down to get some equipment, and I forgot where I am. Completely forgot where I am. And when you realise where you are, you think, shit, and suddenly you start hearing stuff, Ben, and that is psychological, of course. But that place is scary as hell. I mean, we were shooting there, last story I'll tell, we were shooting there doing Dad, episode 5.
Yeah.
And we stayed on the grounds, myself, Neil and Adam, and the cinematographer, Terence and Ben. The rest of the cast went to these real posh chalets with jacuzzis and whatnot, hot tubs. We stayed at the grounds and we would pull up there. And we woke up in the middle of the night and we could hear bagpipes playing at about 4 a.m. in the woods.
That's weird.
Again, unless someone's going out of bagpipes, literally. But if you know Reesby Abbey, you know it's a wasteland. There's nothing around there.
No, that's right.
You could hear it literally as though it was like in the same room, and it was you know it's from outside, but all of us could hear it. They just stopped.
Ooh.
So that's my stories. I could go on and on paranormal if we had an episode of paranormal.
I think I'm going to have to do another series on just interviewing people about paranormal stuff because I was talking to David Howard Thornton the other day, who plays Art the Clown in Terrifier.
I know him, yeah.
And he had loads of stories, and he said to me he could have kept talking about it all night. So,
I think if you're open-minded on stuff, you do. I think you say that sixth sense. It sounds stupid. I'm not quoting the film, but I think if you are open-minded, you do see things as well. I think if you do believe in things, I don't think it's a mind playing tricks. I think you become more open to certain things that happen. Then some people go through life and don't acknowledge. I believe everything that happens for a reason. I think everything that happens in your life is planned and it does happen, and the ups and downs happen. and unfortunately, sometimes some horrible things happen to you. But hopefully it builds you, makes you stronger. Now,
that's right.
Quickly, then, I just mentioned meeting Don, being invited to that screening, which 3 people turned up, and I was pissed off about it, and I suggested this. That has led on to documentaries, books, videos, meeting people, becoming people, becoming really close to people. That is all kind of like snowballed, and that's how life works. We know that, but everything does happen. You leave. Things sometimes happen in your life, and it's for the right thing. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Some things crap happen as well, but we have to
put up with that, and obviously they're happening for everyone at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, no one can really moan about anything at the moment, can they? Really, what things are going on?
No, if they do, they shouldn't. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been great to talk to you again, and I look forward to more documentaries, books, comics, and dark ditties in the future.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Sorry for rambling on, but that's
quite all right. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
This week's true horror story has been sent in by Alex. I grew up in a haunted house. My family moved into the house when I was 5 and my brother was 8. This was not some big old house, but a mid-60s built council house. We knew very little about the previous tenants other than it was an old couple that had moved into a bungalow. Prior to that, we knew nothing. Strange things started almost as soon as we moved in. Both my brother and I would complain of being woken up by the sound of people walking around our room, despite the fact that we were initially in separate rooms. My parents thought that we were both waking each other up, even though we swore we weren't. Things would go missing regularly around the house, only to be found days later in a place it should not have been. The TV remote went missing from the sitting room, only to be found a week later under the mattress of Mum and Dad's bed. These disappearances were of course put down to pranks by my brother and I. After we had been in the house about a year, my younger sister was born, and I moved into the room with my brother, and my sister went into my old room. It was soon after this that my parents started to realise that there was something going on in the house. One night my parents were downstairs watching TV when they heard the sounds of footsteps on the baby monitor, and also hushed voices. Believing that it was me or my brother messing around, they rushed upstairs, only to find my sister's room empty, apart from her, and my brother and I were fast asleep in our room. Another time, my father got up in the night to go to the toilet and saw a figure enter our room. He rushed down the hall, and of course, we were fast asleep, and there was no one else in there. It seemed that my parents' acceptance that there was something paranormal in the house increased the activity. There were frequent sounds of footsteps, lights and television switching themselves on and off, more things going missing. Despite all of this, none of us ever felt threatened or even particularly scared. It was just something that happened in that house. As we got older, the activity decreased. It was almost as if whatever was there was drawn to the energy of children. By the time we moved, when I was 15, the activity had almost completely stopped. We all said goodbye to the ghost the day we left, and one last time, we heard footsteps upstairs. And now we're going to take a look at the 2003 film, Freddy vs. Jason, and ask the question, who won? Throughout the history of horror cinema, there have always been mashups, from the Universal classic monsters teaming up in the 1930s and 40s, to films like The Monster Squad in the 80s. Filmmakers have always enjoyed the idea of making monsters either work together or fight to the death, and so have audiences. In 2003, Freddy vs. Jason continued this grand tradition. Directed by Ronnie Yu, who'd previously breathed new life into the Child's Play series with The Bride of Chucky in 1998. It had been 9 years since Freddy had last been seen on screen in Wes Craven's awesome film, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So fans were eager to see him again. Jason had last been seen 2 years earlier in the space-themed Jason X. Now, that film worked more as a parody of the series and the genre than a straight Friday the 13th movie. This led to it being divisive amongst some fans. The bringing together of these two slasher titans had been first teased a decade earlier in 1993's Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. At the end of that film, Jason's hockey mask falls on the ground, and it's lying there on the floor, and all of a sudden, Freddy's glove shoots out the ground, and his laugh can be heard as he pulls the mask down. The acquisition of Jason by New Line Cinema, the home of Freddy, made this possible, and the company was eager to deliver on the promise that the end of Jason Goes to Hell had made. But what followed was 10 years of script rewrites and changes of director. It almost seemed like the movie was never going to happen. Then, in 2003, it finally hit the screen. The film centres on the fact that Springwood has completely suppressed all knowledge of Freddy from children and teens. They don't know who he is, they don't know the story. Due to this, Freddy has no power, as his power is based on the fear he creates. He can't do anything if no one remembers him. In a bid to force people to remember him, Freddy scours the bowels of hell to find Jason and return him to life. His plan is to send Jason to Springwood to start killing. Freddy knows that this will make his memory surface and regain his powers. The plan works, and soon Freddy is back to full strength. The only problem is that two bloodthirsty slashers stalking Springwood are competing for victims. The two do battle first in the dream world, where Freddy's ability to know his foe's greatest fear allows him to subdue Jason. However, the hero teens realise that the only one strong enough to defeat Freddy is Jason, if they can lure the Dreamstalker into the real world. What follows is a brutal battle royale that swings from Jason getting the upper hand with brute strength and determination, and Freddy leading with cunning and agility. The fight ends with Freddy being hacked to bits and Jason falling into the water with Freddy's glove embedded in his chest. Both sink to the bottom of the lake. After an epilogue for the teens, we see a final scene at Crystal Lake. It's early morning. The air is still fogged out from the fire the night before. Bubbles appear on the still water, and Jason emerges striding out of the lake, carrying Freddy's severed head. The camera focuses on Freddy's face, and he smiles and winks. That's where the film ends. Now, this ending has led fans to debate who the winner is ever since. The fact that Jason emerges whole and walking suggests that he is the victor. However, Freddy's sly smile and wink suggest that he's the one in control of the situation. After all, Freddy's power lies within the dream world, not the real world, and this is a place where he's already showed that he has power over and can control Jason. With New Line acquiring the rights to numerous other horror characters around the same time, it was planned that there would be a sequel. Often cited ideas were Freddy vs. Jason vs. Leatherface, or Freddy vs. Jason vs. Pinhead, and Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash from The Evil Dead. The latter was made into a comic book series, which was quite successful. But a sequel film never materialised, and both Freddy and Jason were next seen in lacklustre remakes. Perhaps a sequel would have answered the question more definitively as to who won the first movie, but instead we're left with the ambiguity of the film's ending. In the end, I think that who you think won depends on which franchise you prefer. If you're a bigger fan of Freddy, then Freddy wins. If you're a bigger fan of Jason, Jason wins. it's time for this week's horror movie news. First up, we have the story that a low-budget horror film called The Wretched has claimed its third week as the number one box office film in America. Now, this is because of the pandemic and most of the theatres being shut, so all of the big studios have pulled all of their big films. You know, their release dates have changed. Films like the new James Bond, Disney's Mulan, A Quiet Place 2, they've all been postponed. The Wretched, which is a film about a young boy who discovers a witch in the woods, has been showing at drive-ins, which are about the only cinemas open, and it's had very little competition, meaning that this low-budget horror film has become the number one box office film in America. Next, we have the news that David F. Sandberg, the director of not only superhero movie Shazam, but also horror movies Lights Out and Annabelle Creation, has released a new short horror film. This is the second short horror film that Sandberg has made during social distancing. The first one, which was called Shadowed, had a woman being stalked by a mysterious entity. This follow-up, Not Alone in Here, is a home invasion movie. It's available on YouTube, so as is the first movie, so take a look. Well, thank you for listening to episode 3 of Everything Fear. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and if you have, if you could please share this with as many of your friends as possible, that'd be great, and subscribe. Thank you. All that's left now is to tell you what's coming up next week. Next week, we have an interview with Graham Humphreys, the artist behind so many classic horror movie posters, such as Nightmare on Elm Street and The Evil Dead. We have music from Creature. We have more short stories, more spooky news, more true horror, and more Everything Fear. So for now, stay scared.